better late than never, but I did want to give you guys my birth story with my son. So if you've watched my channel before, you know I have 2 little girls, and we were totally done having kids because then I had a change of heart and I decided we wanted to have more. So this is my baby boy, and he's got graham cracker all over his face because that's the only way I can get him to sit still long enough to get through this video. So his name is Corbin. We fell in love with that name before we had our second daughter, and we were kind of hoping that she was going to be a boy because we wanted to use it. But as you can see, we had to wait one more baby, and I'm so happy we did because I love our little girl and I would not do anything to change her in the world. So I wanted to kind of tell you my birth story. So it all started on March 21st. I had a doctor's appointment. I was about 38 weeks, 5 days. And I was really hoping that he would come that day because he was due March 31st. And I just remember being like, I don't want to make it all the way March 31st, and Easter Sunday was April 1st. And so I know it sounds silly, but I didn't want to be in the hospital on Easter Sunday because I wanted to go to church with my baby all dressed up in his cute little newborn Easter outfit. So we ended up going to the doctor at about 10 a.m. and I had a membrane sweep. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's not the most comfortable thing, but it is something that is considered kind of a natural way to induce labor, only if your body is ready. And basically what your doctor does is they sorry, this will gonna have a TMI flag on it. They do, they basically kind of push the membrane away from the cervix a little bit, I think. And basically what it does is it can sometimes kickstart contractions and kind of start getting things going. So I had one of those. They're not the most comfortable thing. And I did start having some cramping after that, which is pretty typical. So then my mom was, she lives in the Midwest, so she was actually driving out and she was supposed to come in that evening. So I was like, wouldn't it be fun if she came in and then we literally just up and went to the hospital and had a baby? So she was on her way, and so my husband and I think he had the day off for some reason. I'm trying to think if that was, because it was a Wednesday. So I think, oh yes, he had been working crazy hours, so he basically asked for that day off, and we went to our local trail and we went for a hour hike. It was more like a walk with a few hills, but it was definitely a long walk. I totally bought pineapple and brought it home and was eating pineapple when my mom showed up. So by the time my mom showed up, it was about 5-ish p.m. And she, my contractions were starting to get consistent, but they weren't really painful. So I was like, oh, I don't know, is this really it? So finally, after about an hour or two of them being fairly consistent, roughly 4 to 5 minutes apart and lasting for about a minute or so, we called the doctor and I was like, should I come in? And she's like, well, worst case scenario, they'll send you home, but at least you'll know. And so I was like, fine, I'll come in. Because I'm one of those people that it really would not kill, but it would really make me feel terrible if I wasn't able to get, it would make me feel terrible if I ended up having to be sent home. So we get to the hospital, they check me, and I'm 3.5 centimeters. So I'm almost close to that 4 centimeter cutoff that they will keep you if you're 4 centimeters and having active contractions and you're far enough along in your pregnancy. And so I was like, okay. They're like, go walk for an hour. I'm like, okay, I can do this. So mom and I go walk around as I'm just trying to go through these contractions. And the nice thing is the way it's set up, it's almost kind of like a square. So there's this loop that you can do. So we just kept doing loops for about an hour. And we come back. And before we come back, I'm like, oh, I have to run to the bathroom. So I run to the bathroom. And when I go sit down, all of a sudden I feel this weird gush feeling. And I'm like, that didn't feel right. Did my water just break? So I'm walking into the little triage room or whatever, and I'm like, I think my water just broke. And the lady's like, okay, well, we'll test it. They have some weird thing where they can get some liquid and basically test it and tell you whether or not your water broke. So they went and did that, and I sat down and got hooked up to the machine again and checking the baby's heart rate. Everything was going good. And then all of a sudden it was like, yep, your water broke. I was like, yes! So they get to keep you after your water breaks. So I called my husband. It was 10:30 at this point, and so I call him and he comes to be at the hospital with me, and my aunt who came out with my mom stayed home with the kids because they were already in bed and asleep and stuff. And so basically I'm thinking, so my first daughter, it was 12 hours from start to finish. My second daughter, it was 10 hours. So I was expecting 8 hours I'd have this baby, and I'd already been laboring for about 4 or 5 hours. So I was like, oh, this is gonna happen right away. Normally when I get my epidural, it generally goes pretty quick, like my dilation does. So I went and had the epidural, and to be honest, it was kind of uncomfortable. It didn't feel, I feel like the person forgot to like numb me first, because I could like feel the needle going in, and it was like really intense. So of course they're like, hold still. I'm like, okay, it hurts. How am I supposed to hold still? So finally got that all set up, and I got all comfortable in the bed and ready for like to have this baby. And so I was, so hours ticked by, and then they checked me, and I was like at about a 5. And so I'm like, great, I'm making progress. Cause like once you get past that 5 mark, I feel like normally I go like really quickly dilation wise. So it was about another hour or two later, the doctor comes in, and she's like, oh, let me check you. I'm like, okay. So she checks me, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, you're really actually more like a 4. So I literally lost a whole centimeter. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, this is not like normal for me. Normally I'm just like really quick, everything goes smoothly, and it just wasn't. So then I got to, it was probably about 9 or 10 a.m. So I've been laboring for about 12 hours. I'd had my epidural, and my epidural starts to fail, which is not uncommon, because normally like when you're laboring for more than 12 hours, sometimes it can like move or fail. And what had happened too is that my blood pressure started dropping. So they started giving me a lot more fluid, because you know, you have to keep your blood pressure at a certain point. And so they, what I think ended up happening is it slowed down the contractions. So then they had to give me Pitocin, and then it was just like kind of a comedy of, I mean, it's not like the doctors did anything wrong. It's just kind of the reality of how things work out sometimes. Because they would have never known that my epidural would cause my blood pressure to drop, and would have had to give me like, they had to give me a couple dosage of like, basically like speed, and to help get my blood pressure back up, like adrenaline, I think it is. And so after that whole ordeal, my epidural fails. And so here I am in transition. I can tell I'm in transition because my contractions are like bam, 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 right back to each other. And I am wailing. I find myself like extremely like just crazy, and I just can't believe that, I cannot believe that I'm in so much pain. Like I thought I was going to die. It's crazy, because this is my 3rd child. I should be prepared for this, right? No, you're not. Never. So then finally, they give me a 2nd epidural, and it only takes on one side. So I can still feel the contractions on the other side, but at least I can manage through those, because it was like half pain, if you know what I mean. So here I am, just kind of like, you know, making it through, and it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and I'm starving. So they're like, well, you can't have anything to eat. So I'm literally here angry eating ice chips, because that's all I'm allowed to have. And I mean, I am so hungry, I don't even know what to do with myself, because it's just been like, I think at that point it was like almost 19 hours, and I was exhausted, and I only had like dinner the night before. It's not like I had anything before I made it to the hospital. So long story short, finally it's about 2 o'clock, and they finally that I'm complete, so I'm ready to push. But they let me like kind of labor down for a couple, like a little bit, just to make sure that I have, because laboring down means like they allow the baby to kind of come down into the birth canal itself. It's like you're complete, but you don't push. So it's supposed to make things a little bit easier. I don't really know that it does, but I guess in some ways it was, because when it was finally time for me to push, I literally pushed for 2 contractions, and he was out. And so he was born at 2:32 on March 22nd, which is kind of funny. So, or 2:23, yeah, 2:23 on 3/22 was his birthday and time. So he came, and after he was born, it's so funny how quickly you forget all the pain. I mean, I was on cloud 9. He was happy, healthy. He was, you know, wide awake and totally just absolutely perfect in every way. And so what was really funny too is he had this full head of blonde hair. I was like, what? I was expecting dark hair. Now, my husband does have blonde hair, but I was just expecting him to have dark hair for some reason. And when he came out, he was like blonde, like blonde. So it was really fun that he had all this blonde hair, and he was so sweet. And so after that, my father-in-law actually had to come over and help my aunt with the girls, because he, you know, the girls know him really well. They don't know my aunt as well. And so he helped them, bring them to the hospital, and he had them dress up in the cutest little dresses. They were like couple Sunday dresses, and they got a couple presents for Corbin, and it was so sweet. It was such a sweet moment that we got to have these girls, and they're just like, oh. So I just think it was super cute, and I'm so glad that he's here and that he's healthy, and I'm grateful that he, you know, that he's in our lives. And now, would you know it, I want another one. I guess that's just how it goes with babies. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and please feel free to leave any comments or questions below, and I will talk to you guys next time.